Hey guys, I am going to record a little video here about boar brushes. I'm traveling right now, visiting relatives during the summer here, and having a good time with the kids. And so you'll definitely see some background that you're not used to. A good friend, Gymtasticness online, asked me what I considered what would be a good top of the line boar brush. And the short answer is I don't know. There are some boar brushes that are made by higher end makers like Thader, I believe. I know there's one like that. I think they had a disastrous run at one point. Um, is what's in my mind. I could be wrong though. But you do have the some of the higher end makers bring some boars into play, but honestly, are those knots that they're getting any better than the knots that we're seeing in some of the cheaper boar brushes, um, like Semogues and Zenith, that sort of thing? Um, I uh, my educated guess is that it's probably not any different. With the badger bristles, we're not really seeing the expensive high end ones have any kind of increase in hair quality. What we're seeing is that they're taking two band bristles, two band hairs, and they are parsing through them and cleaning them up, picking good ones, that sort of thing. But then they're just treating the tips and they're making it super dense, and that happens to be kind of in right now. And so is that a mark of premium? No, that's really just kind of a choice in a certain direction. Uh, and and so yeah, that's my short answer. I don't know if I had purchased and used some of the premium bores, then I could at least say, you know what, it's not worth paying this much. You're basically paying this much for a name or just a better handle. Um, but I just I won't be, I can't say that. But what I wanted to talk about today are just some of the things to think about with a bore brush. I wanted to cover some of the bores that I have tried that are just high quality or kind of special in some way. And I wanted to mention the kind of the quintessential bore brushes that I've experienced that I would kind of recommend any big bore aficionado to think about putting in their collection and trying them out. One of the big issues that we have with the boar brush is, and the one example I brought with me when I was traveling is this Heritage Collection one that's the dupe of the, not a dupe because he actually, I think, bought the rights, right? The Come On brush here, and this one's actually the gel tipped version, and it's obviously a bleached strands here, bleached bristles, and so I'll be able to use that as an illustration when needed. Uh, when you have the smaller knots, like Semogue has a whole big collection of smaller knots, sometimes you can just get more of a premium feel by going to something larger. And the Semogue Owners Club is a classic brush that is well regarded generally among the boar community. Some people do call it floppy. It's a big splay, but it's comfy. It's plush. It's high quality. It does use the premium grade bristles in Semogue's lineup. With the recent change to the Hereditas branch line from away from the Excelsior line, we saw a lot of the models switch away from incorporating some kind of premium grade bristle to some extra grade bristle. And I think generally that's kind of a step down, a step or two. But I don't know what if they. I don't think it's just a terminology change. Like for instance, the 1305 is a great little brush, and it was premium bristle, but now under the Hereditas, it's extra premium IB. They have other bristles like the 1800 that's just shown as extra IB, and then there's another one, the 1250, which is just extra. And so it seems like they've got different gradations within the extra grade of bristles, and so it does add to some confusion. Unfortunately, it makes a lot of my reviews and information I've put out as a Semogue fan, it makes it kind of not really relevant anymore, and that's all right. That's the way it goes, right? They did keep the Semogue Owners Club and the Torga, like the Torga C5, for instance, as premium. They did say the SOC was premium select, and so it might be a better version of the premium bristles. But in terms of if you're thinking about the top of the line brushes from Semogue, I think you can ignore handles, and I'm going to have that across the board. But just looking at the knot, because after all, that's the meat and potatoes, right? And I think those two that I mentioned, the Semogue Owners Club and like the Torga C5, for instance, anything with that premium grade bristle, those are going to be the softest tips out there. It still has a little bit of backbone, but the Torga has a shorter loft, and so it's going to be a scrubby guy. Still soft tips, but quite scrubby. I didn't like it like for the first 20 to 25 shaves. It just had a lot of backbone. It wasn't very enjoyable for me, but it did turn a corner, and I'm enjoying it now. The Semogue Owners Club, like I said, is considered floppy by some, but it's just a big splaying brush, and because it's got that extra loft to it there. And so in terms of Semogue's high offerings, that would be what I would recommend. And Omega, I'm not going to really say they have anything premium, because I don't think those bristles are going to compare too much to the Semogue and the Zenith offerings in terms of a high-end type rating. Now, obviously, what's important is how you feel it on your face, the kind of feel that you want to feel. And so who cares whether it has a name or an attitude of high quality? If you find that a $10 Omega brush is exactly how you want a brush to feel on your face, the tips have split just the way you want them, it's got the right amount of backbone, all those other things, then who cares whether it's called premium or high grade or whatever? Then that's the brush for you. But I'm kind of omitting the Omegas out because of that. They're just they generally use the same bristles. They do have some bleached bristles and some unbleached ones, but it's generally the same bristle used. I did see a little guy that has a stripe, 80266 maybe, and he actually felt like a Semogue to me, one of the kind of more mid-range Semogues, but all the rest of the Omegas had these longer lofts and kind of rough-looking bristles. You often can look through the knot and find bristles that are upside down, and so you kind of have to, if you want, you can clip them out. Those happen a lot more with Omegas than with the Semogues and Zeniths, and so that's another reason why I'm not really putting any Omegas in my list of premiums. In the terms of the Zenith, all the Zenith fibers are the same, and so they all kind of deserve to be in the same spot, right? I recommend the B10 and the B2. The B2, I believe, is that one with kind of the bigger handle, the fatter handle, and you can find that same knot, those same dimensions and stuff with different handles that Zenith offers. And it's kind of a big knot with not as much splay as the Semogue Owners Club. Okay, and so if you think the SOC might be a little too big for you, then the Zenith B2 type thing is going to be, I think, a good choice for you. The B10, I think, is the smaller of the two, and it's more cheap. It has a built-in kind of splay. You can see how this one does have a little bit of splay here because of the knot, but everything coming out of this handle here is kind of almost parallel. It's going out that way. As an illustration, or I'm showing you this so that I can then tell you that the Zeniths, like the B2, no, like the B10, kind of have a built-in splay. They'll come out of the knot at a little bit more of an angle, and so that gives you a built-in openness. The B23 that I have, same fibers, of course, since it's a Zenith, same bristles, but it is even more parallel than this one when the brush is coming out of the handle. And so this bottom section here, the bottom half of the bristles, has a lot of backbone. And that was similar to the Torga, where I didn't really enjoy it for the first 20 shaves or so. But of course, it's got the same Zenith great softness in the top 50% that you get with all of the knots. And so that at least is a redeeming quality while you're waiting on things to kind of open up a little bit. And so if you want something with more backbone, those Zeniths that kind of have a barber handle, almost like this, where not really fat up the front, but it has a little saddle, a little waist kind of right here, and then it fattens out. I think of the 23, the 28, they give a different number for each kind of color. And so anything in that line is going to have some backbone for you if that's what your preference is. But for average backbone, a decent easy splay, the B2 and the B10 I would recommend. And the great thing is some of those are very cheap. Now you can get nicer handles and they'll have a different number. It'll be a B, but it'll be a different number. You might get some of those resin handles. There are copper handles. Yeah, all sorts of things. And so, of course, in that sense, you might think you're going more of a premium, but it is really the same knot. But honestly, the Zenith fibers are just tremendous. The Zenith bristles are great. And so even the Zenith scrubby brushes are still gonna have less loft, but they're still gonna have those nice soft tips. So I don't think you're gonna get a scritchy brush from Zenith after you have it for a while. You know, it's just the tips are gonna split and the tips are gonna be soft. That's what you're gonna get. It's just what kind of backbone do you want behind those tips. Now, with the boar brushes, most of my experience has been in the up to 30 use range, and that's really still, with the boar brushes, kind of a baby in terms of age. I do have a couple that are up in the 70s, that kind of thing, and even then, it's still got some time to go before we really see them come into their element and be the best that they can be. Because the tips, they still more need to split. They need to split a little deeper, and that's when the magic starts to happen with these boars. And so the interesting thing about boars is when you buy them, that boar that you're looking at, it's different than the boar you're going to have in 100 uses, in 300 uses. And so in a way, you kind of need to shop with the 300 use in mind. Look at reviews and how it acts that way, is my advice. So this one has those gel tips, like I mentioned. That is a variation that we're maybe waiting on to see how it turns out in the future. The gelling process can potentially be damaging to the tips, and if it's only going to last a couple of years after that, that's something to consider. I mean, the good thing is that if you want to use the gelling process, it's online. You can do it if you want. on a cheap brush, then no big deal. If the tips turn out to break, then you've obviously gelled it for maybe too long, and then you can just replace it, because a lot of boar brushes are $12, in terms of the little small Semogues, So, what if you gelled a brush every 3 years, and that's as long as it lasted? Well, you're buying a $15 brush every 3 years. That's really not too bad if that's the feel that you want. And I do enjoy the gel. Michael Friedberg gave me this one because he's such an awesome guy, and sure enough, I love the gelness of the boar bristles, and I do look forward to seeing how it's going to hold up over time. The one way to go premium in terms of boar is to buy a larger knot. Boars, by nature, I think you just can't, with the width of the bristles, you can't make them as dense as badger brushes. And so a larger knot is going to give you more bristles. You're going to have more tips at your face. And I think that's going to translate into a more premium experience. And so I think I can advise that in terms of if you want to move up, if you want to make sure you've tried a lot of things in the boar market, make sure you try some 30 millimeter options. I have been very happy with I bought some boar knots from Whip Dog. I've tried a normal 24, 26 millimeter boar from him that I really enjoy. Very nice. I would rate it similar to Semogues and Zeniths, that sort of thing. I also tried the 30 millimeter, which I definitely enjoyed. Just more bristles at the contact patch in your face, and I like the way that felt. And so I don't recommend DS Cosmetics boar knots. A lot of upside down bristles, a lot of scratchy stuff, just not good quality control with that one. They're cheap, and so you are in that case getting what you pay for. I think some of the Umo boar brush knots, however, are probably going to be pretty good. I know that the ones that Maggard have come highly recommended. I know that a lot of people are really happy with those, so those are nice. Something I also wanted to cover are some of the boar brushes that I think are kind of ubiquitous. If you're wanting to sample the big market, if you're a collector, then here are some that maybe you want to try to make sure you try. And with boar brushes, if you're going to try it, give it a fair try. Meaning, you're probably going to have to use it for a while, or put it through some kind of break-in process where you get it to a point where you get a lot of the tips split. Because if you're using it when it's young, it's just not the same boar brush as it's going to be for the next 15 years. One of the ones that jumps out to me at first is the Omega 011842 jade handled, one from Connaught Shaving, and it has a big following among the internet. I used it during Austere August, the last time I participated in that, and it didn't really change very much from about 30 uses to 62 uses. I wish it would have changed more, but I think that's the deal with Omegas. A lot of their fibers and bristles, it takes them a long time to change. But it's got a nice handle, and it's a large knot, and it's not lofted too much so that you feel like it's too big. It's not lofted too short to where you feel like it's so scrubby. It's just a nice happy medium, and the large diameter just sits in a really good place. And there's a reason it's well regarded because of those geometry factors. It's just a brush where a lot of things have come together in a good way. The Semogues that I recommend people thinking about are, of course, the Semogue Owners Club, for reasons I've kind of already mentioned. the great bristles, that sort of thing, big splay, and great feel in those tips when they split. It's just tremendous. The also from Semogue, the 1305 and the 830, they were a premium grade bristle like the Semogue Owners Club under the Excelsior line, but they did get downgraded. They're now called Extra Premium IB, and so that's not quite the premium grade anymore. And so, but they're probably still really good brushes. The 1305 is the wooden handled version, slightly longer handle, and so I'm a fan of that one. But it is the 830 has a acrylic or plastic or whatever material kind of handle, and it is going to be it's going to last longer, obviously, because it's not wood, but it is shorter, it's slicker, it's better for face latherers perhaps. I found it a real chore to try to hold on to as a bowl latherer. So you can kind of choose which one you might want based on your lathering method. The 1305 I think is going to work well for either face or bowl, but the 830 I would probably recommend just for face latherers. And so there are nice bristles there. It's a brush that tons of people have used over history of Semogue brushes, and it's not huge, it's not a large brush, but it definitely gets the job done, even with my big face and even with lots of guys that have gone on before. And it will take a little while for those premium bristles, and those extra bristles to split, but I think it's worth the effort. So those are the Semogues I recommend. The Semogue Owners Club, and then the 1305/830. Since it's basically the same knot, that's why I'm grouping those two latter ones together. In the Zenith collection, I've kind of already mentioned the B2 and the B10. It's kind of small and big. You can pick your knot size there. If you want kind of average to easy splay in terms of bloom as well, if you want more backbone, then go for something like the B23, the B28, B29, something like that. And so there you go. I wanted that special little list to go out because I wanted to bring in that Omega, the Connaught Jade Omega. It's a real joy to use, and it's one of the exceptions to my lack of preference for the Omega brushes. So yeah, if you want a nice big feel, you can go for the larger bore knots. I definitely plan on purchasing a big Zenith. I think they have a 35 millimeter. In our sub wet shaving, we're looking at maybe a group buy of that large brush and maybe have it engraved, marked on there with a kind of sub tag there. But if that doesn't transpire, I think eventually I'm going to get one of those. It's a honking big brush, and I think it's just going to feel great on my face. So there is some information about the boar brushes. If you've got something nice that you like a Semogue Owners Club, you could consider that premium. But then you've got this little sterling boar brush that's what, $15? I can't remember what it's cost, but it's very cheap, and it's got a kind of a built-in splay as well. It's got tons of backbone. The tips are going to split. It kind of reminds me of an Omega knot, so it's probably going to take a long time for those tips to split. But what if it ends up in a place that's better for you, feels better, it matches your preferences? What if it ends up in a better place than the Semogue Owners Club does for you? Then that's going to be the premium knot for you, the high-end knot. And unfortunately, sometimes you just don't know how it's going to be until you actually get it that far. So many brushes to try. I'm slow going on my boars just because there's so many fun ones, and it just takes using them to get them moving along. You can do some different recommended methods, some different methods that other people have recommended, like long soaks, that sort of thing. I'll take a moment right now to interject that fridge method is a mistranslation. of an Italian barber's method of doing brushes. So you don't have to put brushes in the fridge. It's just kind of a long soak. I have heard reports that if you take a long soaked brush, you're working on your towel too much, it can break some of the tips. So I don't really recommend working it hard on towel. Um, the I'm liking the hair dryer method so far. I'm playing it cautious a little bit with it, but I'm liking it for helping those tips to split. So yeah, I'm sorry I don't have any experience with the premium boar brushes in terms of something higher than these Zeniths and Semogues. I just, in a way, I haven't felt like I needed to jump up to those because these guys are terrific. Just I'm happy in the land of where I am right now, you know. And then you don't see a lot of those premiums on the used market, for instance. And I think my educated guess is that you're just paying for a name with many of those, or you're paying for a really nice handle that some of those premium makers like to put on their brushes. And if you like that, then that's up to you. So hopefully this helps answer some questions, and I'll put this out there on the public YouTube just in case it helps other people too. This is 2022, and we're in the beginning of July right now, and in August, our wet shaving subreddit likes to do an Austere August challenge where you can pick like the same soap and use it all month. Some people go further and use the same stuff, the same razor, the same soap, the same brush all month. You could do that if you wanted to, if you felt like jumping in and watching us all talking with us each day with how things are going. I've used it to test soap usage amounts, that kind of thing. I used one time of it to test Martin de Condre soap and how much I would actually use in the whole month. And I was not surprised that I didn't use very much. It's going to last you a long time. But what surprised me is that I learned I didn't like that performance. It broke apart too much when I was adding a lot of water, and it didn't really come across to me as a premium quality soap. After that, I don't use it anymore. But one challenge that some of the guys are doing, and this is kind of in why this video was made, why the question that spurred this video was issued, is that they're going to take, and the people who are going to want to do the challenge are going to go and buy a brand new boar brush, and then they're going to use it starting, the first time they use it will be August 1st. No long soaks, no breaking in with any kind of shortcut method. And what is it? The hog? I can't remember what the name of the challenge is. But and so we're going to have a whole bunch of guys trying out boars and giving them a month's worth of shaves. And I think that's perfect because so many of them, especially in my experience, the Semogues and the Zeniths, are going to, by the end of the month, give the idea they're going to change enough to where a person's going to get a good idea about what they could expect further use in the boar arena there to give them. And so I think it's either going to be a good thing to where they, oh wow, I love what this is doing, I can see it changing, I like the way it feels on my face, and I'm going to keep going a little bit further because it's going to change a little bit more still, or they're going to still get a good impression and realize, you know what, I'll just go back to Badgers, that sort of thing. So I'm really excited to watch. I hope I'm able to, at this time in my life, I don't know if I'll be able to, but I hope I'm able to watch the progress of these guys. I hope to participate in Austere August in some way. We'll see. But I'm looking forward to watching that happen. Guys are just going to let August 1st be the first time they use a brush that they've purchased. And then they're going to, at the end, on the last day of August, it'll be the 31st use, and so it'll be fun to watch them grow. You really do get attached to boar brushes as you use them, because they do evolve and they do change, and you, it's almost like they're a living being with character and attributes and that sort of thing. All right. Well, I don't know too much about those premium boars, but I've shared with you what I do know about the premium nature of the boars that I do have experience with. And boy, I think I've probably tried about 30 or 40 different boar brushes. So there we go. Hope this is going to help some of you out there. All the best to you in the land of guys who try boar brushes. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Take care now.